Yay. Hey guys, it is I, Becca Lori Hector here, back with another Being Back Alive, right here from my office. Yes, I am here in the office today. I was actually just working on a project that I've been working on in here for quite some time, and I was just working on it out there, and then it was time for live stream. So as you guys know, Being Back Alive is about being me, being an autistic adult alive today, trying to function and survive and thrive here on our planet as it stands today. It's not easy sometimes, and sometimes some days are difficult and some times are difficult and certain challenges are difficult. So it's my attempt to kind of talk about what I struggle with in the now in hopes that it will resonate with you guys somewhere out there. So, hey, CV, welcome everybody. Hey, Bernard. As you guys who are part of the Self-Defined Living support group know, I did a little shout out this morning in the group looking for topics. Hey, Bill. Looking for topics for today because I am at a creative loss, you guys. It is, I don't know, I'm like really, really tired in a different kind of way. I'm like physically tired and I'm also mentally tired. I had some projects due last week and I had some writing that I've been doing in here for a little bit. And also, as you guys know, kind of right about now, hey, Nancy, right about now is sort of where my seasonal depression kind of peaks itself. And so I'm not surprised that I'm feeling so low energy. But what's annoying about the low energy is that I also kind of lose a little bit of creativity and a little bit of that spark that gives me the ideas of the things that we need to talk about when I'm doing this stuff. So today I really am at a loss. Today I am out of creativity zone. And so what that means to me is that I should go to my list of topics that we've talked about in the past or mentioned here and there and steal from it to use for today. Because there are plenty of times where we're talking about something else here and a topic kind of comes up that's sort of a part of it, but it could be its own thing. And I always say, I'll come back to that. We should talk about that. So we're going to talk about today, we're going to sort of continue down the whole path of thinking about food and food struggles and eating and some of that stuff that comes along with it. I wanted to talk about kind of separately because I feel like it's its own conversation. So today we are going to talk about kind of body image and outward appearance image. I don't even want to say body image because I feel like now the words body image like that mean something different than they used to mean. So there's a lot of, we need to have positive body image and all of that stuff. And we see a lot of videos about being positive about your body and your body image. And but I don't want to talk about it just from the perspective of weight, right? I don't want to us, especially as autistics, to think about our physical bodies just in terms of our weight. Is weight part of that struggle? Is the way maybe that we're not in shape or the way that we think we weigh too much, is that a part of this struggle about outward appearance? Definitely. But are there other factors? Absolutely. And so what I want to make sure that we don't do is for me to say I want to talk about body image, and I mean our whole outsides, right? And our whole our outer appearance to the world, right? I don't want to talk about that and then have everybody thinking that I just mean our weight, because that's not what I mean. It's much more complicated, I think, for us. So that's the stuff I want to talk about. I want to talk about body image and our outer appearances, right? My body makes me seem like a dork sometimes, says Bill. My body does too, right? Because there are struggles with our outward appearance when we are on the spectrum. And some of them have to do with clothing, right? Our clothing choices. I tend to dress for comfort. I am not a fan of the mirror. Oftentimes I can look in the mirror and say, well, this outfit makes me look fat, or it's too big, or it's whatever, right? And at the same time, I can put on clothes that fit me really well. And then when I look in the mirror, I don't feel like me, right? And so I know that I can look really good in clothes, but if they're not comfortable to me, it matters not like how good I look on the outside, because I know that that discomfort will invade my entire day, and it's just not worth it to me at this point in my life. Was there a time in my life that it was important to me? Absolutely. Right. In my early 20s, my mid 20s, really important to me that the way that I looked on the outside matched what I wanted people to think of me. Right. So that's the thing about our outward appearance, right? It is the thing that people see first about us. It is, they don't, meet us on the street or pass us on the street and see our brains inside our skulls. That's not what happens when we meet people. What happens is they see our physical presentation first, right? That's just the way the eyeballs work, right? And that's how our brains begin to process information and categorize people and all of the stuff that our brains do automatically, right? So when we think about outward appearance in terms, and outward appearance, I want to include, okay, identity in that outward appearance when we're talking about it, okay? So it is, it becomes a coping mechanism. Let's call it what it is. It becomes a trauma-related coping mechanism when we dress for the comfort of others, when we dress to fit in, when we dress to be appropriate, right? That is for everyone else's comfort. And sometimes dressing appropriately is just fine with us, right? It's comfortable clothes for us, we're fine, right? Dressing appropriately for bed or dressing appropriately for the gym to work out, right? Easy peasy, no problem, right? Getting dressed appropriately for a wedding or for corporate America or any place else that's a little bit more fancy, right? I always think about the flight attendants. How do they do that? How do they stay dressed in that really formal uniform and ride on a plane all day long? I feel so sad for them, right? I just want to be in my comfort zone, right? In terms of clothing, right? But when we want to present a certain, and this is part of masking, right? This is part of that whole masking thing. When we want to present a certain way to the outside world, we want to make sure that we present it also here, right? So what it is in here that we want to be out here, right? They're supposed to match, right? That's the goal. That's the idea, is that who you want to be in here and who you are out here matches. And when we don't do what matches, that's when the work comes in, right? That's when it's an effort. That's when it's an annoyance. That's when blah, 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 right? So, for example, I hate bras. Bras are my nemesis. They are I can't, right? I can only tolerate them for a certain amount of time. Okay. So in my head, I used to have a rule that if I was going somewhere, right, in order to fit into that social norm and in order to be what it was I wanted to project, right, I couldn't wear a sports bra, because sports bras do this thing where I'm wearing one right now. They squish you down like this, right? And it gives me what I like to call a uniboob, right? It makes it look like one big boob in the middle instead of the way that your breasts are supposed to look. And so the uncomfortable bras make them look like they're supposed to look, but I can't tolerate them. And so I had to learn to compromise about that. If I felt like I needed to wear a real bra somewhere, I'd know that I was compromising with comfort and for the time that I'd be able to pull it off, right? So that's one piece of our outward appearance that we have to, make concessions for. I want to say that we have to make compromises about, right? The next part about our outer appearance is our physicality, right? Many of us make awkward motions. We're not very fluid. I'm somebody who has dyspraxia, so I am constantly bumping into things, dropping things, not able to coordinate certain activities, right? And so I very quickly can look clumsy, and often clumsy and unintelligent are mixed together, right? A clumsy person is often a stupid person, right? And so there's a lot of shame that comes with not being able to do with my physical body what I'm intending to in here, right? And it really makes you feel like a child and all kinds of other things, but it's part of my outward appearance, right? If anybody spends any amount of time with me, they're going to see those dyspraxic struggles. The other things that they will see are I don't know, what is deemed our odd socialness, right? When we go into an info dump, or when we don't seem to be paying attention because we're not looking in the eyes, but we are paying attention, right? And all of those things. So there's the volume of our voices, stuff like that can be very off-putting or endearing to people depending on who they are. But that's part of the way we present. It's part of our physicality, our outward appearance, right? Then, of course, part of that struggle is weight. Let's talk about it, because it is one of those things, right? It's not the only, but it is one of those things. I struggle with my weight my entire life. I think as men and women who are forced to look at what we look at in magazines, on TV, in movies, we certainly are in a world in which people like to judge us from our physicality, from our weight standpoints, right? That kind of thing. And so what that does for us is, when we feel that need, we just want to fit in, we just want to be liked, we just want to be normal, right? We want to present in a way, right, where everyone will treat us equally and not differently. So when we're overweight, or we're out of shape, or sometimes we're underweight. A lot of us are underweight because of the food struggles, right? So that part of our appearance, the weight portion of our appearance, can often be part of what we worry about when we're thinking about fitting in, knowing that if we're too far on either side of the weight struggle, too thin or too fat, right, that we're not going to be part of that group, that normal group, and we will stand out even more, right? And so I think that becomes like, I know I'm autistic, but I want to show the world that I can, I can pass as neurotypical. And so, in thinking about that, especially, I know, men struggle with it as well. And I'm not trying to not acknowledge the men, but I'm also wanting to acknowledge that women have a whole other layer of it, which is that not only are we struggling with the food, and not only are we struggling to fit in, but we're also have that other layer, which is that the world tells us that as women, we need to make sure that we look and present appropriately to be attractive to men, right? And so that's a whole other layer that women have on top of it, where if we gain too much weight because one of our favorite safe foods happens to be high in fat, or whatever it is, right? It's a bigger deal for us. It becomes, it's a big deal when your pant size changes for women. And so that's another level where I just want to physically show people that I can fit in, right? That's part of that pressure we put on ourselves, again, about our outward appearance. And then I want to talk about what I think is a trap, really, essentially, which many of us fall for, which is a part of thinking that if we mask well, it will all be better, right? Which is that we kind of, and I talked about, remember we talked about masking, and I talked about how we have like heroes and people we look up to and people we want to emulate, right? And that includes their dress, right? That includes when we look at them and say, well, I want to give off that impression to people. Let me also mimic the dress, right? Let me also present outwardly that way. Right now, I have done that. I can't even talk about how many millions of times I've done that to just try to find a space where I could just be, right? Where I could be comfortable, but also be successful and all of those things. Well, I've been through a lot of styles in all of that time. I definitely went through, I think my first inclination about my own personal style, once I got past like 12, 13, was really about the music that I was listening to, right? And I was really listening to a lot of grunge music. It's still my favorite. And so my dress came kind of around that, right? And that was my first kind of personal style. After that, I know when I was in my 20s, I really wanted people to think I had my shit together and that I was a good employee and all of these things. So I wore a lot of skirt suits. I wore a lot of pantsuits to work. I was an executive secretary. I did a lot of 9 to 5, and I really desperately tried to let my dress kind of lead that way for me. But I will tell you that I spent every goddamn day uncomfortable. People thought I looked fantastic, and I got a lot of those compliments on the outward, but on the inside, I was feeling like shit. So it wasn't really servicing me great, but I didn't know any other way to deal with it, right? Circle back around, and here I am now in my 40s, and I can tell you that I am 100% back to wearing exactly what I wore when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. It's still my favorite style of clothes. It's still the most comfortable for me, and it still works the best. So in any random day when you see me out in the world, I am probably going to be wearing a big giant t-shirt, my overalls without this part up, right? I leave them hanging down because I have the boobs, and the boobs don't fit in overalls. But I also hate waistbands. And so overalls give me an opportunity to not have a waistband on, but still have pants on. And so I do that, and then a flannel, and then sometimes a hoodie on top of that. And that's my go-to outfit. That's my personal uniform that feels like it's in alignment with who I am and how I want to present. But at the same time, it's authentically me, and it feels good, and I can do it I can wear it for the longest, right? And so it's sort of that interesting space that I kind of had it all together. I was on the right track when I was 16 and 17 and 18 and exploring my identity, right? And, without fear of judgment, without any other layers on it, just almost in a rebellion, right? You're in that phase. You're like, I don't want to be what everyone thinks I'm supposed to be, right? All right. So that's the other part of it, right? And so I sort of had it right, but then I kind of let that whole outward appearance thing kind of affect that. Another thing I've struggled with outward appearance that I've tried, I couldn't make a line for a very long time, is the fact that for most of my life, I've really been a fan of dark colors. And I know, oh, so goth, but I'm not a goth person. I just really like black, and I really enjoy dark colors, and they make me feel safe and loved and a lot of other things. And they're easy for me to match. And it's just always been kind of my style. I've also always been somebody who's colored my hair, right? And kind of really enjoy expressive colors in certain ways, just because it adds a little bit of joy into my life, and I like it. Well, for years, I wouldn't color my hair these crazy colors because I worked in corporate America, and you couldn't do that. So I had, my hair was colored, but in a very normal way, right? And the other thing, as I'm looking at myself, is tattoos, right? There's another way that I couldn't align, right? Or where I was out of alignment. I love tattoos. I think they're gorgeous. I love the idea and concept of wearing somebody's art for the rest of your life. Like that's a shared bond with that person. I also love it as a storytelling tool, right? As kind of, I want to mark this important thing in my life, and that kind of thing, right? And that was always hard, because if you wanted a good job, you can't have tattoos that people can see. So for most of my life, I didn't have tattoos on my arms. I only had them on my back and on my legs that I could cover, right? And I got to a certain point where I decided, I never want to do a job that makes me not be me again on the outside and makes me feel so fake all the time. So I'm going to get a tattoo. And it was actually this one. I got a tattoo on my arm where there's no hiding it. Like, it's all the way down here. You have to see it no matter what I'm wearing, right? And that was my way of saying, if I apply for a job or I go to work at a workplace and it's unacceptable that I have tattoos, then I don't want to work there, right? That was my way of doing it. But for a long time, I just got tattoos everyone could hide, right? That I could hide under my work clothes, kind of thing. So that was another piece of it. So all of this combined stuff together makes it, our outward appearance, a super complicated thing for autistics. And so what we tend to see is either people who are trying really, really hard and working really, really hard to keep up that show, right? Or the opposite, which is the people that have just said, F it, I'm going to say, do whatever, what I'm comfortable wearing, doing, and being, right? And it looks to a lot of people like we've given up, because we tend to choose sweatpants. And you know what? They're comfortable. I don't blame you, right? And so what we need to think about is, what does this all mean together in terms of identity, right? Because our internal identity, our hopes are that our external identity is in alignment with our internal identity, right? But we really need to think about that, and less so now, fortunately, thank you, COVID, right? But it was something we really had to consider, and it was something to consider even as a part of employment, right? Is outward appearance. So yeah, it's complicated, right? It's complicated in terms of identity, right? Because if you're faking out here, but you're somebody else inside, that's exhausting and complicated, right? If you don't know who you are inside, and so you're faking the outside until you figure it out, right? That's also hard. And so what we need to do is kind of come to some kind of compromise for ourselves about making sure that we are comfortable, yet also expressing ourselves, yet also appropriate, meaning that we're not like shirtless in the middle of, the library, right? So we have all of those things to think about. And then when we layer on all of the psychological crap that we deal with as autistics, right? All of that garbage, outward appearance is complicated. The last part of it that I really want to talk about is the one that baffles my mind the most, which is that I spend a lot of time, or I used to, much more so than I do now, definitely. I used to spend a lot of time thinking about and worrying about what people thought about my outward appearance, right? But at the same time, internally, I couldn't give a shit less what my outward appearance is, right? I'm not somebody who wears a lot of makeup, who wears fancy clothes, who cares if my hair is perfect or any of those things, right? And so inside, it's not a priority for me. Like in here, outward appearance in that way, right, in terms of measuring up to other people's opinions, right, unimportant to me in the overall scheme of things, not a priority to me in my heart and all of those things. And yet my life was consumed by anxiety surrounding my outward appearance because of the way that the world is. And so talk about being unaligned, right? That couldn't be more unaligned, right? And so it's that part of identity also that I want us to think about when we're thinking about outward appearance. Yeah. So somehow I managed to not have a topic, but talk for 22 minutes to you guys about what was on our list, which was to come kind of back to this idea, right? Of the complications of outward appearance and identity. So I hope that this was sort of a chunky thing that gave you some good things to think about as we continue down this path of like food struggles and picky eating and whatever. And as we talked about kind of our appearance of our body, right, as part of that struggle, I wanted to tackle the whole thing because I feel like it's multi-layered and complicated for those of us on the spectrum. Well, anyway, those are my thoughts for today. I am going to go eat some lunch because it's about lunchtime here, and then get back to that piece I was working on and a few other things I have to do. And then I am going to go and do some self-care. So you guys have an amazing day. Do something great with it. Create joy. Share it on the internet so I can see it too. I could use all the joy and cheer I can get right now. I just need to make it a few more months and the sun will return. All right, you guys, have a good one. I will see you next week. I'll see you on Sunday for Growing Gratitude, and then on the following Tuesday for the next Being Becca Live. Until then, I will see you out on the interwebs. You can find me at beccalaurie.com. You can comment wherever you're seeing this video. And of course, you can email me directly at info@beccalaurie.com. Please do me a favor. Give me your thumbs up. Give me your views. Give me your shares so that I know that what I'm doing is still worth it and that I'm not wasting my spoons. Thanks, you guys, for joining me. I will see you out in the world, and I will see you on Growing Gratitude on Sunday. Bye, guys.